I want to talk about something today that I am going to refer to as the fear of making a mistake. A lot of math students deal with this, and this really, really does hold you back from advancing in your knowledge of math, improving from like making simple mistakes and whatnot. Check this out. So I put a problem up here, or not a problem. I put a quadratic here, x squared minus 10x plus 6. Now, typically what happens is we would try to see if we could factor this, into two binomials. What times what is 6 that'll add to give you negative 10. But we can't really figure that out this way. So we're going to use the quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now, here's how you do that, So this quadratic is in the standard form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is 1 because that's in front of the x, b is negative 10, and then c equals 6. Now, the issue that a lot of people make, not just in these kind of problems, but even in other math problems, is that they tend to kind of forget negative signs. Okay. And so, look at this here. So we want to plug in, this is negative b, but keep in mind, we're wanting to substitute in for b, and there's a negative sign outside of b. Notice that b in and of itself is negative. But a mistake that people will make a lot of times is this. They'll go x equals negative 10 plus or minus, and then plug the rest of the stuff in. Negative 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6 over 2 times 1. Okay, now, so what happened is you saw the negative and then you saw the negative here, but somehow you kind of like dropped this one off. That negative 10 in and of itself is negative. So what it should have been is a negative on the outside and then negative 10. Okay. Now, where the fear of making a mistake comes in is that I notice whenever I'm tutoring a lot of students that they will hesitate to answering a question. Like if we're going over a math problem, you hesitate to answer the question because you've made mistakes in the past and you're scared of making that mistake. So if I ask you, okay, plug this in, and you're like, you look here and then you look there and then you see the negative signs and then you get kind of scared. And so you're like, I don't know. But here's the deal. It's not going to hurt if you make the mistake. Okay. Now, it is a mistake that needs to be corrected. However, the most important thing for you to do is to just go ahead and try it. So if you make that mistake, if you go x equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root of, and sometimes people even do this, they'll do negative 10 squared or something like that. Or maybe you'll go like this for some reason, I don't know, times 1 times 6 over 2 times 1. And so now you have a couple of different mistakes that have been made in regard to negative signs, but it's okay. Because all you have to do is get used to understanding the fact that you're substituting in, so it's a negative and then whatever b is. So it's a negative sign and then whatever b is, and b is negative 10. So it's a negative of negative 10. And then here, b is being squared. B is negative 10. So you want to make sure you square negative 10. Mistakes, yes. But the end of the world, no. You just have to be unafraid to make the mistakes. Just understand that you just have to get used to seeing the correct way of doing the math, if that makes sense. Hopefully what I'm conveying is understandable. Another way that this fear of making a mistake manifests itself, and it's kind of similar to what I've talked about, is when students are afraid to ask questions. So, you are like, maybe we've gone over a problem, and then it's like, for example, let me give another example. Say, for example, we're going over like geometry or something like that, and you have something like this. And so you say, let's make it real easy. This is 44 degrees, and what is X? Okay. And so I say it's 44. And say you don't really understand why, but then I ask you, and then it's like, oh, I understand, but you really don't understand. Here's the deal: when you don't ask questions, then you almost solidify a learning gap. And I try to tell students all the time, the main way that most of us learn is by asking questions. I say one of the main ways that most of us learn is by asking questions, because literally the question that you ask represents a gap in your understanding, that if somebody answers that question for you, it can be filled. Okay. Now, for one, the way that I grew up, I really learned to learn independently. And I learned most of what I learned independently and by observation. But I really started to understand, especially when I got to college, that asking questions was key, because you don't know everything. And sometimes even if you look at something for a while, it's hard to understand. But somebody, somewhere, usually your teacher, your tutor, maybe even a fellow student, somebody has that understanding. They can say a couple of words that can help you to understand whatever it is you don't understand. So all I would have to tell you here is, well, both of these are 44 because they are what you call alternate interior angles. And alternate interior angles are congruent. They always are, period. Once you understand that, then you're like, oh, okay, now I'm actually good. Versus feeling like you can't show that you don't understand, and therefore perpetuating a learning gap. Now, next year or the year after that, you're hurting because you didn't get that question answered. So what I want to say is, don't let your fear of making a mistake keep you from trying. Don't let your fear of making a mistake keep you from asking questions of your teacher, your tutor, a peer, or whatever. You have to get that stuff answered if you really want to understand math. A lot of people don't understand math because they probably have some questions that they should have gotten answered a while ago, but they got scared somewhere along the way, of getting the questions answered. Asking the questions because you felt dumb or something like that. You're not. You're human. That's the way that we learn. Asking questions, trying things, trying stuff and making a mistake is great. But then not trying something because you're scared of making a mistake, then you solidify learning gaps, and you don't want to do that. Okay. So please don't be afraid to make a mistake. Try it. Also ask questions. Trust me, I know this from personal experience. All right. Make sure you like this video, share it with a friend who has issues with asking people for help or trying something because they're scared of making mistakes. Oh, and make sure you subscribe as well. And thank you for watching. Hey, thank you for watching this video. If you need math tutoring or you need SAT math help, look in the description to find out how you can sign up today. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you stay in touch with Math Swap Tutoring on YouTube. Have a good one.